Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to another amazing Throwback Thursday with Herbie J Pilato as moderator. Herbie J is the founder and director of the Classic TV Preservation Society, and we are delighted and honored that he's spending another Thursday night with us. I will let him introduce his wonderful guest, but on behalf of everybody here at Barnes & Noble Burbank, welcome, enjoy your evening, and thanks for joining us. Yay! You're welcome.
So she always gives such a nice introduction, doesn't she? Let's have a nice hand again for Diane. Barbara is our manager. She's here tonight. Let's have a nice Barbara. So how's everybody doing tonight?
Doing great.
Good. Well, these Throwback Thursdays have been just wonderful, and it's just been such a celebration of classic television, classic film, classic movies, classic music. And what we try to do is concentrate on the positive. As the founder and executive director of the Classic TV Preservation Society, I have tried to create this sense of positive influence of all good things that are in the media, all the good things that are in the media from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so that's what it's all about. And I take my seminars to schools and colleges and community centers and businesses around the country talking about Be Positive Influence. Here at the Burbank Barnes & Noble, it's just such a perfect place for it, because I was telling someone earlier that to me Burbank is a cross between Mayberry and Hollywood. And it's just so cozy, and cozy really is a key phrase. So when we come back, I'm going to introduce someone very special who has meant so much to so many for so many years. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have such an incredible performer, human being. He takes his talent, and he's taken it for years, and he uses it for the betterment of humanity. There isn't one thing that he hasn't done as a performer or as an artist that hasn't brought joy and love to the world. Before I go any further, I'm just going to say 2 words. Mr. Ron Dante. 3 words. How are you, sir? Fine. Have a seat right over there. That's your mic there. I gotta tell you, I'm just so honored, truly. I mean, Sugar Sugar is one of my favorite, if not the favorite pop song of all time. It's got so much love, so much joy. I can't imagine the amount of joy that song has brought to the world. Before we get into how, and then you're going to perform it. He's going to perform that song tonight. Okay? But before we do any of that, let's talk about your life, where it all began, and, let's go right from the beginning. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in New York City, a little borough called Staten Island, the borough that could. It was a great little borough. We were surrounded by water on all fronts, and there were some real good clubs up there that I could play and sing as a kid. So I really liked growing up there. It was good. It was part of New York City, but it really felt like you were in the country. You really felt that there were hills and Boy Scout camps and horseback riding. It was really, really delightful. And I must say, the reason I started music was I was in one of those Boy Scout camps, and I was climbing trees, and I fell out of a tree, and I busted my arm up, and the doctor said, "You need to do something. It'll be stiff all your life, so you have to do something with it, exercise it, squeeze a ball, or take up guitar." And that's what I did. I took up guitar, and it changed my whole life.
Well, but who were some of the artists that inspired you?
Oh, obviously Elvis. Elvis Presley, the Everly Brothers, a great group called the Platters. All kinds of people at that time, the 60s. My dad used to play all the pop music on these big 78 records. And I just listened to it, and I just gravitated to great singing.
Okay, but what was it about those particular artists what was it about Elvis and the Platters that stuck with you?
Well, I mean, Elvis, Elvis.
Yeah.
Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Sure.
It was unbelievable. It inspired me to play that guitar and sing. And there was something, it communicated something more than just the music. It moved me. It kept me up at night. I wanted to write songs. I wanted to sing. And there's videos of me at 13 years old playing guitar in the backyard and entertaining some of the neighbors.
Sure.
And the emotion that came out of those voices, though. I mean, I just love the voices.
Well, isn't it true that there are many artists who can sing, but they don't have the emoting ability? They don't have that special thing that makes a song great. So Elvis and the Platters had that.
Well, yes, and the Everly Brothers had this great sound, this harmony sound that everyone hooked on to. It was very original. They sang great songs, Bird Dog, but there are a lot of good singers around. Every town I go to, I go to the clubs, the churches. There's a lot of good singers, but there seems to be something special that separates the really good singer from the singer that communicates with their voice.
Right.
There's something immediate about something. Like when I was working with Barry Manilow, he may not be the greatest singer in the world, but his voice communicated those lyrics so that you believed that song.
Right.
When he sang for Mandy, you believed it, and he did, and that was the magic of his voice, and that's why he's been around 40 years.
God bless him. God bless him. Don Kirshner, music producer, is known to the mainstream classic TV world for Midnight Special. But he played a very important role in your life and career. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I was very fortunate. I had a young manager up on Broadway and 50th Street in a building called 1650. It was full of music publishers. And my young manager said, you should go downstairs to the Don Kirshner office. Let's see if we can get you an appointment with some of their writers. So I went down there, I hung around, and I finally got an appointment to audition for some of their writers. And Don Kirshner had this firm called Alder Music, and he had the hottest publishing firm in the business. He had Carole King and Jerry Goffin, Neil Sedaka and Howie Greenfield. He had the greatest, Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, great songwriters, writing hits. I finally got in to see Donnie, and I played him one of my songs, and he said, kid, we're going to sign you. You're going to be the staff demo maker. And he gave me my first music job. And I will never forget that because he was always there for the writers. He loved his songwriters. And I must say, the first few months I worked there, somebody stole my guitar out of my car. And I went to Don, he said, my guitar's stolen. He said, here's a check, kid, go buy another guitar. And 6 months later, that same guitar got stolen, and he gave me another check. He was like your best uncle.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was very talented. He could pick a hit. I mean, he
Well,
really
yeah, he
knew.
was known as the man with the golden ear. Is that
Yes.
true? Now, what's this? The Brill House?
The Brill Building.
Oh, the Brill Building?
It's a famous music building where it was across the street from Don Kirshner's offices, but this is where all the great record companies had their publishing houses, their record companies. Lieber and Stoller, the great guys who would work there. It was a great building because it had these big halls that echoed. So when you would walk through it, there'd be a little singing group in one corner auditioning for the people coming through. In the coffee shop, there'd be somebody else talking a deal. It was one of those great buildings. The elevator operators could tell you which publishers were looking for a song. In fact, when I was in the Brill Building, I started out song plugging at one point, and I met Paul Simon, who was just starting out. And Paul said to me, go to the top, take the elevator to the top, and walk down, because it's easier walking down instead of walking up to all the publishers' houses. And that's where he got his publishing deal, and that's where I got my record deal.
It sounds like such a magical time.
It
I
was.
mean, what an incredible time that was. Now there was a group here on Los Angeles on the West Coast. It was that was like the Brill House version or the Brill Building version here. What do you know what that was?
I don't remember that. It was East Coast versus West Coast.
Yeah, yeah.
The West Coast sounds were great, though. I mean, they
Right.
were coming up with the
Well, it's like the
Doors.
people that were doing
Yeah.
the Partridge Family. I mean.
Oh, right. Oh, that's
You know, there was that group of songwriters.
right.
Okay. what did you learn from Don Kirshner as a producer? When you, later on, when you started producing, what special thing, influence did he have in your life and career as a producer?
Well, Don Kirshner's talent was the choice. He would choose the really cool songs and then put them together with the really cool voices and groups that were hot. And he would always follow up with lots of promotion. He was like the P.T. Barnum of his day in the music business, because he could get attention on that song. When the Righteous Brothers were looking for a song, Don Kirshner published "You've Lost That Love and Feeling," and he got it to Phil Spector, who produced that record. And I remember in the office, Don Kirshner played us the first, all the aspiring songwriters were in the office, and he said, "This is a new Righteous Brothers record, it's gonna be a big hit." And then I remember him saying, "Now we're gonna promote this like crazy," meaning he would hire promotion men in like 20 key cities to promote the records. But I remember the most important thing he taught me was the song and the singer. If it's not really good, if it really doesn't communicate, don't waste your time recording it. Because this is what people need, something that touches them, either makes them dance, makes them feel happy or sad, but something. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have a couple more questions and we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back everybody. We're talking with Mr. Ron Dante. Look at this, look what I found. Look at this picture. Here you are. This is from, what's this? Some Image magazine from Show magazine from March of '64. He's 18 years old. Okay, he looks the same. I mean, I don't see any difference.
No, I don't have the Buffon hairdo. You know, everybody combed it up a mile high.
I mean, that is just amazing. So this is 5 years before Sugar Sugar and the Archies. So how did that happen? How did you come to? Well, I know this is a group of people that was under Don, right?
Yes.
And this was who?
These were the staff songwriters.
Okay.
Don said, "I want to choose my young songwriters who are just coming up, and I'm going to give them a shot at national publicity." That was his genius. And in the picture is a guy named Artie Kornfeld, who was one of the main men behind Woodstock. Mike Lang, Artie Kornfeld produced it. There's a girl in the picture. Her name is Toni Wine. And she was the singing voice on Sugar Sugar. She was the girl voice.
Oh dear.
She also went on to write a beautiful song called Groovy Kind of Love.
Aww.
And Candida.
Oh my God.
And the other two guys in the picture were part of my novelty group called the Detergents. We put a novelty group together. We were crazy kids. What did we know? And we
a lot. You knew a lot out of it.
But at the time, it was really good.
All right. So let's cut to 1969 because that song is just. How did it happen? Where did it happen? How did you connect it with the Archies? Was it a plan to always do it with the Archies? What's the deal?
Well, Sugar Sugar came about as a result of the HJP-TV show, which was on CBS, and it was a morning show, cartoons, and it was the #1 show in its area. When it debuted, we did really well. We had a few singles, but then radio stations decided maybe they wouldn't play the animated group. So Don Kirshner called this famous songwriter, Jeff Barry, and another guy named Andy Kim, and he said, "We need a song for the Archies." And Andy Kim on the phone said to Jeff Barry and Don Kirshner, "Well, how about something like Sugar Ba 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 Ba?" Just like that, it came out. They finished the song, and I remember the recording session was just great because Jeff Barry, the producer, he produced the Monkees. Jeff had written 20 hits before he got to the Archies. He wrote "Chapel of Love," "Be My Baby," whole bunch of great hits.
Andy Kim went on to do Rock Me Gently,
Rock Me
right?
Gently, very talented people. So between Don Kirshner and Jeff Barry and Andy Kim, I knew we had a really good shot at a hit song. And the night we did Sugar Sugar, I remember distinctly working hard on that vocal. And I said, I've got to make it really sound right and really capture the song. And a few weeks later, they released it, like a month later. And the Archie show played it, of course, so we had TV exposure. But the DJs were still kind of leery about playing an animated group at the time. So a promotion man in San Francisco took the label off the record, gave it to a DJ and said, start to play it a couple of nights and see what the reaction is, without telling people who the group is. So they played it and the phones lit up. The record became #1 and it went around the world as the #1 record. It's outsold the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Fifth Dimension that year. Really, 6 million copies. That was you can't sell 6 million copies today. It was just an unbelievable experience.
And even at one point they were on, the record was on like the cereal boxes, right? You would have cereal, the record right there in the
It was
cereal
a cardboard record that you could play and cut out of post Sugar Crisp. And they made up, this was Don Kirshner's genius, 10 million boxes went out. So kids would be growing up with the box in front of them, they'd see the record, they'd cut it out, and they'd put it on their record player, and it would play maybe 20 times. And then they'd go out and buy the same
Well,
one.
that was genius, because as a kid you would eat cereal watching cartoons. It was absolutely perfect. I know I did that. Pop-Tarts too. So it was, the Archies was the highest rated cartoon in TV history, from what I understand. It got like a 75%, right?
Yes, we had a great run. 4 years.
Okay. Now, there was a 45-minute TV show in 1969 called The Music Scene, right? Hosted by David Steinberg.
Right.
Now, from what I understand too, Sugar Sugar, which at that time, of course, was number one, there was a rendition of that song by a gospel group,
Yes.
a country band. Now, but they were trying to, like maybe do a satire, but the song is so brilliant that any form of music or any musician could play their own version of it, and it still came out great.
Well, Wilson Pickett had a hit on it in the R&B charts. In fact, because the Archies didn't tour, there were a number of R&B groups that went out saying they were the Archies at the time, and Don Kirshner had to sue them to stop
geez.
using the name because
Oh,
Wilson
geez.
Pickett had a big hit with it.
Wow. Wow. Okay, let's see. All right, let's just go. Oh, now I want to talk a little bit too about the cufflinks.
Oh.
Now the cufflinks, before, after, where does that all fit in?
The cufflinks I recorded at the same time as the Archies, because I was a studio singer. I would be brought in to sing other people's songs, then they were called demos. They would send them out to other artists, but a lot of my demos became records. And this one song, Tracy, came out as a group. I recorded it. I did it one night. I put about 16 voices on it. Kept overdubbing my voice so it sounded like the Association, I thought. Anyway, the record came out. It was number 9 when the Archies were number 1. So we had 2 records, and I had 2 records in the top 10, and people still didn't know my name. But it was a great moment to know you're in the top 10, that your voice is being heard on radio every day. It was great.
Of course. Okay, let's see. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're talking with Mr. Ron Dante of the Archies and Sugar Sugar. In 2000, in Santa Barbara, there was a concert called the Jeff Barry Tribute Concert. Brian Wilson, Ronnie Spector, and the Dixie Cups, and you. What do you recall about that concert?
Well, it was a PBS special, and so it was going to go out to like 25 million people would finally see it. So I was a little nervous doing it with Jeff. But Jeff Barry, songwriting, they did all his hits that night. And I remember thinking that the audience is full of entertainers up there in Santa Barbara. So I was a little on edge, but it came out really nicely. And I must say it was great being on stage with Brian Wilson and Ronnie Spector, 2 of my idols. I love their records. So that was a great moment. And as I said, PBS still does great music specials. In fact, it's the highest rated music special on TV are some of those PBS specials, the doo-wop specials especially.
Right. Okay, talk a little bit about producing for Cher and Barry and some of the others that you went. What was that like?
Well, producing is like having a train set. You get to do everything, lay the tracks, put the trains on, design the landscape, and the same thing happens in the studio. I met Barry Manilow singing a commercial for Pepsi. We were both jingle singers. He was starting out. I had already been doing jingles for many years, singing commercials. And he said to me, "Oh, you're Ron Dante, you're with the Archies." He said, "I'm a songwriter. I have some songs for you." And I said, "Well, I'm producing. So let me hear your songs." And he played me a couple of his songs, and one was "Could It Be Magic?" One of those classic pieces. I said, "Well, if you can write and sing that, I've got to produce you." So I went in the studio. The producer does everything. It's like the director of a film. He chooses the studio, the musicians, the engineers, make sure the singer sings it in pitch, and you believe it. Then you help mix it, and then you promote it. And I did everything with the Manilow records, especially. I got him a record deal with a label. And
It's a Miracle?
It's a Miracle was one of our first singles.
Another one of my favorites, complete beautiful song.
Yeah, Barry loved that song so much he opens with it every act almost. It's a miracle. It's because he feels his life is a miracle.
Talk about feeling the music. Oh my gosh, from your toes up. It's just fantastic.
Well, music has always been a part of my life. There's a picture of me at 6 years old imitating a singer named Johnny Ray, who some may remember, but his big deal was to rip his jacket off in the middle of his song on nationwide TV. And there I am ripping my jacket off, singing. And my dad loved it, my mom loved it. So early on, music was a part of my life. My dad always sang around the house. So coming from a nice Italian family, everybody sings at weddings, everywhere.
Very true.
And so I had, in the DNA of an Italian singer is to sing or be in the mafia. No, it's one of these two things get you down. But the singing
right?
Yeah, but got me. And I picked up a guitar, and once I had a guitar, I could write and I could sing, and it stayed with me. Singing has never let me down. I must say, I get the greatest joy when I sing, because there's something about making music, and it makes people smile. You know, if I start to sing in front of you, you'll look at me like, that's not bad. You know? So that's what music, it's in my DNA. It definitely has to be part of me, and I'll do it, till I'm 100.
Okay, we're going to take another break, and then I've got a couple surprises here that I'm going to bring to the table. We'll be right back. Hello, sitting here with the great Ron Dante. I'm going to show you just a couple things here that one of my executive researchers brought.
Okay.
I was just delighted to see it, first of all.
Oh.
These are the cereal boxes, right?
Oh my
No.
Yeah.
These are very classic, yes.
Wow.
Let's see, which songs are on? Oh, it doesn't say. It's usually Bang Shang-a-Lang and Sugar Sugar and Jingle Jangle, all those great titles that go along with cereals.
There you go, look at that.
Oh, wow. This is our first album. And we actually debuted this album at a press party at Madison Square Garden, playing against the Harlem Globetrotters, or the Globetrotters. And I was on the basketball team, really, but that's the way Don Kirshner promoted this album so beautifully.
Everything Archies?
Right, this is our Sugar Sugar album. This is the second album we put out. And everybody kept saying, oh, you look a little different there. It's because it's not me. I met this model once at a soda shop somewhere, and he came up and he said, I'm the guy who's actually your model. I said, you're not getting any royalties.
The Archies, Jingle Jangle.
Right, Jingle Jangle was one of our fourth singles. Very cool. Wow. Got all the album. Sunshine.
Sunshine.
Yes. Yeah. And This Is Love.
This Is Love.
Yeah. I was upset that they didn't use the Archie characters on any of these records, on the albums. I thought they would have done even better than they did. They did very well.
Right.
But I wondered why they gave up on the Archie characters. They were so loved, and they still are. I guess it was RCA Records and the Kirshner.
Yeah, because they did it on the cereal.
They did it, and they went crazy.
Again, still looking the same.
Yeah, right.
You got like a picture of Dorian Gray at your
Yeah,
house or
right.
something?
There's a picture somewhere. No, this is my solo album that Don Kirshner made sure I did. He said, if you do the Archies for me, I'll make sure you get a solo album. So I got to record with Jeff Barry again and do all my favorite. I actually got to write most of the songs in there. It was great.
Tracy, the cufflinks.
Right. Yeah, this is Tracy when I'm with you. This is the Ba 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 album. And it was a lot of fun to do this. I did this whole album in 1 week. I did all the vocals on it in 1 week. It was like marathon singing sessions.
It's really good too.
And here's my solo album. Me doing my best James Dean with the glasses and everything. Yeah. Trying to be cool in a 1957 Chevy or whatever it is.
Now, here you look a little different.
Yeah, I look better in a bathing suit. You got to see me without clothes on. I changed.
Dante's Inferno.
Yes, that was my disco album. During the late 70s, everybody was doing disco. I said, well, I've got to do a disco album. I've got some great songs, and it was a lot of
Perfect
fun.
title, obviously, to the classic.
It
Dante's
worked,
Inferno.
and it worked, and it was that was a lot of fun.
I want to say a special thank you to Pat McFadden for bringing these incredible albums.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you so much. Super fan, super guy. Okay, we'll be right back. Hi, everybody. Okay, we're going to bump up the lights a little bit and take some questions from the audience, just like Carol Burnett. Yes, yes.
How many Barry Manilow songs did you do? Did you do Weekend in New England?
Question is how many Barry Manilow songs I produced. I produced 10 of his albums. I did everything from Mandy through I Made It Through the Rain. And I did Weekend in New England with him, and we love that song. It still stops the show when he sings it live. It's just one of the most beautiful songs ever written by Randy Edelman, who's a wonderful scorer now in films. He's a great songwriter, he scores films and things. But I remember the night we did Weekend in New England, it was just great. But we had a very good run. Manilow and I recorded him from 73 to 82. So we had a lot of, every summer we're in the studio doing an album.
Did you write any of the songs for him?
Barry and I wrote one song together, and it's about Bette Midler. It's called Flashy Lady. It's on his first album.
Yes, sir.
There's a video of the Archies, a cartoon video that went out at the time. I was on YouTube today and I saw a video of you playing 4 different parts in a studio doing Sugar Sugar. Was that done around the same time? What's that from? 'Cause it was
That's
really
from,
cool.
the question is, there's a video of me in split frame, and I'm playing different instruments, and I'm singing Sugar Sugar. And I did that on, there's a Houston TV show, like a Dick Clark show at the time, 1970, called The Larry Kane Show. And he said, pick up a guitar and sing the song, play a tambourine, sing the song, drum, and then we'll put it all together. So that video is on YouTube, and it's me singing Sugar Sugar. The funny thing was, after I did it, I never saw it for about 30 years. I kid you not. I never saw the video. I knew it existed, but I didn't look for it. And I was going through a period in my life where I was going to say, what am I going to really do with my career? Am I going to continue to produce, or am I going to continue to maybe sing a little more? And I turned on MTV, and that video was playing at that very moment. It was like a message that said, oh, you better continue to sing because you can do it. And I believe in those things, and that's what that video means a lot to me. Thanks for asking that question.
Yes, sir.
You haven't talked about your Broadway credentials.
Well, Broadway was an extension of where I worked. I was always in the Broadway area. The Brill Building, 1650 Broadway, all the theaters are there. So I would walk by them, I'd go in and watch rehearsals. I always wanted to be a part of Broadway. Actually, as a 21-year-old, I was offered the opportunity to write a score for a rock version of Billy Budd. So we did it, and we raised like $500,000, and that got me into the mindset that I could be involved in Broadway. Of course, Billy Budd did not run. People didn't like a rock opera of Billy Budd. There was already an opera of it by Benjamin Britten. So it wasn't a success, but I met a lot of good friends in the Broadway area. And a few years later, I was at a party, and I was with a fellow named James Lipton, who's got the Actors Studio, and he's a friend of mine. And he said, I have this play I want to produce. Would you like to become part producer with me? And so I read it that night, and it was a black drama about a street gang, and Morgan Freeman was in it. Mr. Morgan Freeman, right? It was his first role. And didn't do that well, but it led to other productions, and Jim and I got involved in the show Ain't Misbehavin'. And I became a producer of Ain't Misbehavin', which won the Tony that year. And I just love the experience of live theater. There's nothing as thrilling as people live doing a real show, like Phantom of the Opera or anything like that. West Side Story, one of my favorites. But that was my involvement in Broadway, and I kind of continuously look for projects that may take me back into the Broadway area. I did about 16 shows as a producer with my friends. I work with the Schubert organization. It's good to work with the guys who own the theater, I must say.
Yeah, if you're going to do, you may as well do the Schubert.
Work with the Schubert. So I was very lucky. And another fellow named Emanuel Eisenberg, who produced all the Neil Simon shows over the years. He was a close friend of mine. So I love Broadway, and hopefully we'll go back.
The Archies?
The Archies are
On Broadway?
they're going to be coming to Broadway. The guys who did Anchorman, the director and the star of Anchorman, have licensed the Archies for a live musical on the Archies. So that should happen about Will Ferrell. It'll happen in about 2 years, because it takes that long to get it from book to theater to smash.
And then it'll
I'll
probably
be there.
become
Well,
a
I'll be
feature
there.
film. It'll be a feature film
And
after
it could-
that, I'm sure.
That's right. So there's some great things going on with the Archies. They just changed the look of the Archie comics, if you noticed. Archie kind of looks like Justin Bieber now. But they're trying to keep up with things. We'll see if it succeeds. I like the old animation, actually. I like the old look.
And they're doing a new series as well, right?
Yes, Fox has a new series called Riverdale, which is, and it's a kind of an updated version of the Archies, a little more serious, like Friends. Than,
and they have to use one words these days, so you can put it on the Twitter feed.
Riverdale, yeah. Thank you.
You talked about the influence of Kirshner on you as a producer. How about Jeff Barry? Because he was a magnificent producer too. What did you learn from him?
Watching Jeff was like watching a pro, like going to college, because he would make sure that track, the initial music track, was really hot. And he'd work with the bass and the drums first. So I watched him and I saw the way he worked with the other musicians. And then his song choices were always really first class because he could write the hits. He wrote Hanky Panky, he wrote Be My Baby, Chapel of Love. He's amazing. Then he worked with the Monkees. He produced I'm a Believer for the Monkees. He discovered Neil Diamond. So watching him, I learned how to mix, actually, because he would take the entire thing, then get on the board and start to put it together so that it really hummed, that all the instruments were heard, but the voices were not too low, and he added the perfect amount of echo, and he would do like 20 minutes, and there would be a mix. So I learned that from him, and he was a very good advocate for many years.
And hand claps.
Hand claps and shakers. You had to I learned every record I make now, you have to have hand claps, shakers, and tambourine.
Yes.
Are you still producing?
Yes, I continue to produce. I continue to look. 2 years ago, I produced Steve Lawrence. I took him out of retirement. And I said, Steve, if other people can have a hit at their age, you might as well. So I got him a deal with Curb Records, and we did a beautiful album called When You Come Back to Me Again, which was dedicated to his wife Edie, because she had just passed away. So that was.
They were unbelievable, an unbelievable team. Unbelievable team.
Unbelievable. Steve and Edie. I was told how hot they were, and I was shown that they were great. We saw them close the Stardust in Las Vegas. So I'm working with some new acts. I produced a girl from Australia, a 20-year-old, kind of a Katy Perry type, and I've just discovered two girls, two sisters, 15 and 16 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They're kind of like two young Beyoncés, and we're looking for innocent songs for them, because they're too young to get into the 18 to 20-year-olds, so we're looking for boyfriend, girlfriend songs and things. But I'm working with them, and they'll be out next year.
So we have the music industry sitting right here. Do you understand that? Just amazing. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. What's that?
Oh, I forgot to bring the Spider-Man album.
Yes, I was once Spider-Man. That's right. An audio album. I did get around.
We're going to take a couple more questions, and then we're going to hear Ron sing Sugar Sugar. So any other questions?
Are you writing and producing your own stuff now?
I'm going to actually writing, producing myself. Producing other people does take you out of the loop for your own creativity. But we're putting together an anthology, 2 CD set of some of my greatest albums, my best albums. And then I was a ghost singer. I sang on maybe 20 different groups. Crazy names like California Incline and the $2 Question and the Web Spinners. And we're putting all those singles on a CD. So the people that want to follow my career can follow it. So that's going on right now.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the name of that CD? With
My
the
CD.
singles.
Singles.
Thank you. Great.
Any more questions? Yes.
Was there ever any talk at all of a live-action Archies going on tour by Kirshner?
They did,
get lookalikes and go out.
They did talk about live action, but the comic book people who own the copyright wanted to keep it animated. They thought it might. They just wanted to keep it animated. In fact, I said when it was #1, Ed Sullivan played it, the animation. He played the cartoon on his show, so they kept it that way. But it was okay. It was okay. It was a great time to make records.
Okay, we're going to have some live action in a minute with Ron Dante and Sugar Sugar when we come back.